What's good, YouTube? It's me, Code 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Boston community. Shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. In this particular video for my LDBC family members and for the boxing fans, we're going to touch on the mega fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, before we get to that, early this week, Monster Inoue defeated Scooter, better known to me as Stephen Fulton, Cool Boy Steph. Now, props to Monster Inoue. I don't want to make it sound like I'm taking credit away from him. He had an excellent performance. But, despite, the outcome of the fight, I'm still going to support Cool Boy Steph. I'm still rocking with him. I still support him to the fullest. So, major shout out to Cool Boy Steph. Now, the issue I have with the outcome of the fight is the fact that a lot of these same individuals that did not have Cool Boy Steph in their top 10 pound for pound, the fact that, Monster, he had an excellent, Monster Inoue, he had an excellent performance against Cool Boy Steph. Now, they say, despite the outcome of Spence versus Crawford, that Monster Inoue is the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport of boxing, which is ridiculous to me. If you didn't have Cool Boy Steph in your top 10, how in the hell could Monster Inoue be number one for his performance against Cool Boy Steph? I don't care how many weight classes, he's been a champion in. You can't justify putting him at number one when Cool Boy Steph isn't even in your top 10. Now, you're going to give him credit for beating a fighter that you didn't even have ranked in your top 10, which is ridiculous to me. So I'm not buying into this whole notion that Monster is number one pound for pound. I'm not trying to hate on him. I'm not trying to take away any credit away from him. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. He's not even in my top 10. And the reason being, I'll give you a couple examples. First, Chocolatito. I remember when Floyd Mayweather Jr., the first time he stepped away from the sport of boxing, he really didn't retire, even though he said it was a retirement at the time. He had extended break away from the sport of boxing. They had Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez as the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport of boxing, which was ridiculous to me. I'm like, how is he number one? I don't even know this guy. And the first time I saw him fight, I was not moved. I wasn't overly impressed. And then once he actually moved up in weight, he really showed that he really wasn't. He was a good fighter, not taking anything away from him. But he wasn't the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport of boxing. Then we fast forward to when Floyd Mayweather Jr. actually retired from the sport of boxing. He actually retired, and in my opinion at the time, Andre Ward was the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport. I had him number one, and I had, at the time, Terrence Bud Crawford was my number two fighter. However, a lot of individuals had Vasily Lomachenko is the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport of boxing. At the time, Andre Ward had, 30-some fights, and he was undefeated, and he had been the undisputed champion in the super middleweight division, and he was a lightweight champion, light heavyweight champion. And Bud, he was champion at lightweight, and he was undisputed champion at junior welterweight. Yet, they had Loma, who had less than 10 fights total, and he had one unavenged loss on his record. So he had one unavenged loss on his record, and he had less than 10 fights total. And they had this man as the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport of boxing, which was ridiculous to me. So these are two examples of the reason why, non-black fighters get shoved to the top of the pound for pound list. So it's ridiculous to me. I don't care what anybody says. The winner of Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Bud Crawford is the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport of boxing. Bar none to me. All right, now to the actual fight itself. I think it's going to be a high-level chess match. I think it's going to be a Night of Legends type fight. I'm expecting a real close fight. I think Errol Spence Jr. is going to win the fight. This is the reason being. I think Terrence Crawford is athletically, I think he's a better athlete than Errol Spence Jr. I think he's an excellent counter puncher. I think he has excellent ring generalship. He has a high boxing IQ. You know, he checks all of those boxes. I think the advantages that Errol Spence Jr. has over him is the fact that he's naturally the bigger fighter, the stronger fighter. He's fought better competition. And he just has a way of breaking his opposition down. Now, in terms of how the fight is going to actually play out, Errol Spence Jr. is a southpaw. And Terrence Bud Crawford, he's a switch hitter, but in all actuality, he does all of his best work from a southpaw stance. So he's going to start out initially in a conventional stance, and eventually, after a few rounds, maybe after 2, 3, 4 rounds, he's going to switch to a southpaw stance. That's where he does all his best work. So in all actuality, really, he's a southpaw. Even though, you know, we say he's a switch hitter from the standpoint of he starts out in a conventional stance or orthodox stance, and he transitions to a southpaw stance. Whereas other switch hitters, they switch from orthodox to southpaw and southpaw back to a conventional stance all throughout the course of the fight. Whereas Bud, he does it at the beginning of the fight just to download information. And I think that's part of the reason why he's a slow starter. He just kind of, the first few rounds, he feels out his opposition. I think another advantage that Bud is going to have in the fight, in terms of when the fight, you know, is mid-range, I think he has a competitive advantage. But in terms of when the fight is an inside fight, he should want to avoid that, because that's where EJ or Errol Spence Jr., that's where he's going to have the competitive advantage. So he's going to want to keep Errol Spence Jr. from making it an inside fight. So he's going to want to keep him at that mid-range distance. And another thing too, you know, even though Bud has moved up from lightweight to welterweight, usually he has like a considerable height and reach advantage over some of his opposition. But in this fight, he only has like a 2-inch reach advantage over Errol Spence Jr. The same reach advantage that Udana Zukas had over Spence. But more than anything, I think, as usual, I think Bud is going to start out in an orthodox stance, in a conventional stance, and he's going to allow Errol Spence Jr. to jump out on him in terms of the scorecards. You know, he's going to spot EJ the first few rounds. Then I think he's going to download his information. I think he's going to make the proper necessary adjustments. I think he's going to win some rounds, and I think it's going to be a back-and-forth fight. And I think at the end, I think Errol Spence Jr., because of him, you know, jumping out early on the scorecards, and in addition to the fact that I think he's just going to gradually break down Bud. You know, one of the huge mistakes that Terrence Bud Crawford makes is the fact that even though he's an excellent counterpuncher, he's such a good counterpuncher that at times he's defensively irresponsible. And as a result, he gets hit way too often. And then another issue it leads to is the fact that, you know, if you touch him, if you get him with a good shot, instead of him being smart and just wanting to box, you know, he likes to trade, he likes to slug it out. Him getting in a slugfest in this particular fight is going to be bad news for him. I think that's going to be the thing that's going to cost him in the fight. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth fight. I think Errol Spence Jr. is going to win a close, unanimous decision, maybe even a split decision, 115-113, 7 rounds to 5. I think it's going to be an excellent fight. You know, I'm hoping it's not going to be a one-sided butt-whipping like Errol Spence Jr. predicted. Even though Terrence Bud Crawford is a slight betting favorite in this particular fight, I think Errol Spence Jr. is going to pull out the fight. So that's it for this video for all my boxing fans. If you saw any value in this video, like the video, share the video, comment in the comment section, subscribe to the channel. Also, click the notification bell so you can be alerted anytime I post any new videos. I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal day. Peace and blessings.